So the way I organized the presentation, towards the end I have lots of nice examples, but when the time is up I will just stop. So I put on the timer now, so I see that. Good afternoon. So hopefully I'll keep you awake after lunch. It's not the easiest slot, but I try to make it not too boring. And to create some excitement, we'll start with some money. So basically, this morning we've been listening to the perspective of the candidate countries, potential candidate countries. But my main message is that the story of improving public governance and quality of public administration, it does not go away when you are a member of the EU. In fact, the awareness is increasing that it's a very important horizontal topic to achieve the objectives of the EU, whether to complete the single market or just to implement EU legislation in member states. Now, there are different policy instruments to encourage member states to improve their public administration. I work with the European Social Fund, and a part of the European Social Fund is also used to invest into the quality of public administration. Not every member state is eligible. You need to be a country with one so-called less developed region or a beneficiary of the European Cohesion Fund. That means you're slightly poorer than average, and on this basis you would be eligible to get money from the ESF for this topic. 18 countries are eligible out of the 28 that we have, and one country actually courageously said we don't want any money from the EU. That was Spain, and Spain has a very interesting reform, so this is a whole interesting debate. But you see, in total it's about it's more than 4 billion euro. Oh, sorry, I was going to go back on that. It's about 4 billion euro, and you see that in fact Italy is the biggest beneficiary. I should also be fair to Michael. We also have a contribution from the European Regional Development Fund under the thematic objective of improving quality of public administration. But the ERDF mainly focuses on improving the capacity to manage the structural funds, whereas the ESF focuses on running the country basically. So you cannot just say, okay, here's the money. And now what do we do with it? How do we improve public administration? We are always told we're supposed to link policy and funding. If we invest in improving the environmental situation, we need to see what is actually the EU environmental policy and to link that. Now there we have a problem, because what in fact is the EU policy on public administration? And there is none. It's not part of the acquis, or it's extremely limited. However, we know that there are many challenges that member states have in this area, and we have a process called the European semester. Does anybody know? Hands up if you know what the European semester is. Okay, got it, yeah. So it's sort of an analytical process in the context of the economic governance, where we basically assess the systems and the performance in member states. And within the context of European semester, we've always assessed also more or less the quality of public administration. And over the time, over the last few years, about up to 20 countries received recommendations in this regard. So when you are a country with a recommendation, for example, improve efficiency, effectiveness of public administration, then you're also supposed to link your program for improvement and the money to that area. Again, we try to take a strategic approach, and in the current funding period, we came up with a system, we call it ex-ante conditionalities. That means before you get any money, you should show to the Commission that you have an overarching strategy and a strategic approach. I think the strategic approach was emphasized by the colleagues from the OECD and others. So we want to really see that a country has an underlying national strategy for reform before we actually release the money. And then, if you know about the EU structural funds, we always work on the basis of so-called operational funding programs. And because the policy is not so clear, or the line and the opinion of the Commission of what does it mean improving quality of public administration, there was a lot of demand for guidance. People ask us, what shall I focus my strategy on? What shall I do? And I said, okay, we have to do something. We have to actually help the member states to work with this. And when we looked at the kind of topics that most member states were concerned about, so I call it the OP, so in the operational programs, the type of issues are really what was mentioned this morning. So being, cut red tape, being more business friendly, obviously being also, accountable, clean, having, high levels of integrity, also better planning capacity, and so on. Now, the other issue that we were facing, or what we learned from previous funding rounds, was the focus of, the perception of achievement was always, okay, we need to spend the money. And if you have a high level of disbursement, quite often we were satisfied. So, you managed to spend the money. But what were actually the results? This was never so clear. Or the results were perceived as being the outputs. So somebody said, I have a good result. I trained 1,000 people. I said, okay, well done. But, is that a systemic change that improves the service delivery to citizens and business? We're not so sure. So we are waking up to this. In fact, our Commissioner for the Budget, Vice President Georgieva, has an initiative called EU Budget for Results. We are also under a lot of pressure to really deliver value for money with the money that we have. And so we try to communicate, exactly, we try to communicate, let's have a dialogue on results. What is a result? Yeah. So we want real improvements, and real improvements is not just changing laws and systems, but also sometimes it needs a bit of a culture change, more service orientation, more integrity, and so on. So with all that, what we try to do is we try to put all our knowledge together in a guidance document, and this is what we call the Quality of Public Administration Toolbox. Yeah? And you will find it on the internet. There is, actually we should have brought some of them, but you can order it from the EU bookshop. Very simply, you write a message and you can order 100 copies to share it among your friends and colleagues. There's a short version that is published, and then the full version is quite large, but it's nicely structured. And you don't have to read it like a book, yeah, but you go straight in what interests you. So I want to tell you a little bit about this. I should also acknowledge that we would never have been able to do this alone, so we contracted the European Institute of Public Administration, and they were really great help in help us produce this output. The status is just a technical report. Yeah? It's not a law, it's not a regulation, it's not an official EU thing, but it's because it has a very low profile status, it's quite a popular product. I will tell you about this. So why is the toolbox good? Now, because public administration is not an EU policy, we don't have a single entity that is in charge of this. I'm not in charge of public administration, but many services have an interest. So, for example, our DG GROW deals with public procurement. Our DG Home deals with anti-corruption. Our DG Justice deals with the rule of law and equality of judiciary. And everybody has a lot of experience, but we all work in silos. We work parallel to each other. And what we try to do with the toolbox to bring all the perspectives and the knowledge that we have together in one document. And we didn't try to develop new things, but just to compile what exists, because so much that we do is out there and nobody knows about it. It's not accessible. And very importantly, it's not prescriptive. We don't claim that we know better, but we are a partner, and we try to inspire. So we don't tell you what is in the toolbox, you have to do it this way. Rather, when you read it, you will see it's more like discussing. You say, these are some principles, and in one country it might work, in another it might not. So it's like a cookbook, you choose what you want from it. And then we have a lot of examples. There's 168 cases that are really inspiring examples where you can see what countries actually practically did. And I should say again that many of the examples actually came from the EPSA. Yeah? So the EPSA is really important for us to have some real evidence. So it's technical guidance, and I said, and more, because it's not just a report that you put on your shelf, but it's a living thing, and we use it as a basis for dialogue and discussion with member states how to do. So just to sum up, so the purpose of the toolbox, it was really important for our own capacity building that we as a commission learn, what works, what doesn't work, and that we learn from each other's knowledge. And also that we have an agreed line to take. That means when we go out to discuss with the member states, sometimes you are from one service, for example, you work in economics and finance, you might have a different opinion from somebody from DG Employment. But with the toolbox, we have agreed what we think is good together. That's quite important because you avoid conflicting messages. And also because it is an important topic and we do spend a lot of money, we also had to make a statement. We will, as Commission, we will never try to compete with the OECD. The OECD is a very important partner for us. We think they're the leaders in this area. But we have many very specific EU aspects of the debate, and this we want to also communicate. And so far, it has been quite a popular product. It's sort of on the top seller list in terms of downloads on our website, and the member states reacted very positively. So if you look a little bit inside, I think if you look at the themes, there would, of course, be nothing new. So it's very much in line with the principles of public administration and the priorities outlined by Bernard this morning. I think we emphasize a lot also the values, principles, and ethics. So a little bit the culture of integrity, the attitude, towards services for citizens and so on, and accountability. So there you have it. Now, a little bit looking inside, some examples. This I will probably go very fast because it's just repeating what the colleagues said. I think we all agree. So obviously, if you look at designing policy, avoid being reactive. But as Bernard said this morning, you have to have an evidence-based policy making. Always reflect: does it work? Focus on co-creation, share responsibility, and also laws and regulations, they're not a rigid thing, but you always need to reflect, is it still adding value or do we need to improve and change it? In terms of delivery, sometimes we think we can solve all the problems by putting money at it, but sometimes it's not only about money, but increasingly, as also highlighted by Marga, working on the basis of networks and partnerships becomes more important. Maybe this I want to show you because we talked a lot about corruption. I think corruption is very central, or rather, integrity is very central, and the absence of integrity is very bad. In Romania, corruption brought the government down. There were protests, corruption kills. This was after a nightclub burned because they didn't follow the safety regulations. And more recently, there was a case that a company supplied diluted disinfectants to hospitals, and because of this, many people died. So it's very serious, and Romanians are very upset, and they have a huge anti-corruption program. The problem with measuring corruption is that it's very difficult, and we normally do this through opinion perception-based surveys. But perception is different from reality. So we have invested in some research. There's a project called Anticorp. It's very good. It's with the Hertie School of Governance, and the leader of this is Alina Munju-Pipidi. And she tried to put an index, an assessment of corruption that is actually evidence-based. She works with mainly with procurement data, and she has a very cool assessment. She showed, this is in an actual country, how winning in public tenders changed over time as the government changed. So she took two construction companies that are extremely similar. They would be very level. So the normal behaviors you would expect that they would win equal amount of contracts, more or less. But she showed that when one government was in power, the orange company won almost all the contracts, and as the government changed, the other one picked up a lot. So these kind of games are interesting, and then they create an opportunity to then dig further to see what is going wrong here. So we really try to also improve evidence base and understand problems. Now, further on corruption, there's the sort of famous corruption formula. It's the opportunity for corruption in terms of the discretionary power and the control over public resources, minus the constraints is sort of the risk of corruption. And practically with the toolbox, my time is up, but I'm sure you want to hear the rest of the story. We were quite upset when we were programming. So the Commission has quite a lot of control over the programs because there's a real dialogue and a negotiation. We were upset because in countries that were supposed to tackle corruption, they said, oh, we do some training, we do anti-corruption training, and then we do a bit of whistleblower, this. And when we spend lots of money on these anti-corruption agencies. And then we looked, we said, okay, anti-corruption agencies, does that make a difference? And for example, Nigeria, which allegedly is quite a corrupt country, have 16 anti-corruption agencies. Yeah? So we came up in the context of the toolbox with sort of a wider framework, which first of all you start by creating an integrity framework. Do you have codes of ethics and also then to develop risk-based strategies and so on, and focus on. You need to rebuild public trust by being more open, publish all your data, publish your procurement data, and create better accountability. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have anti-corruption agencies, but it's very much about how they work and the quality of the work rather than just having it. So these are the kind of debates we want to stimulate in the context of the toolbox. I will stop now. Maybe just a small bits. I think this is nice, and I think you can all identify with this. We tend to work a lot in silos. We definitely do in the Commission. We try to improve now, so I put this because I think we're sort of dancing between the silos. We have more and more collaboration. But in the future, I think administrations have to learn to work like a Formula One team, where everybody knows their place, but you still work on the same thing as a partner. And if you want to really take this serious, I recommend a book by Gillian Tett called The Silo Effect, and it shows how much we kill our efficiency and effectiveness by silo mentality. And the silos are not just in the institutions where we work, but the silos are very much in our head. So modern, complex and wicked problems need modern and complex approaches to solving them. What is also, just last point, sorry. This is not Michael, by the way. I think what is very important that if you want, good, competent public administrations, we also need to be an attractive employer. So how do you recruit your talent in the future is, I think, very important. We focus very much on this. And read the toolbox, you will see about this. I will not talk about service delivery. I will not talk, and I will not talk about rule of law. That's also cool. If you can ask a question, I'll show you this later. But I'll finish now. Read the toolbox. We'll talk about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.